Welcome to the Half Court Press Podcast, Omaha World-Herald production. Joel Lorenzi, Dirk Chatelain. I'm Dirk. He's Joel. You probably figured that out by now. It's good to be back, and another eventful week on the local hoops beat. Joel is his program is riding high after three very necessary home wins. Big test coming Saturday at UConn. The Jays are going back out on the road, and it feels like a little bit of a reset. So we'll cover that. We'll cover the Huskers who took one on the chin at Michigan State the other night, and have a sneaky big game on Saturday, Joel, that will not rise to the same prominence on a national scale as Creighton, Connecticut, but Nebraska, Minnesota sure feels like a big one, considering how few road games are probably going to be winnable for the Huskers. So we'll cover that too. As always, thanks for listening. This is your most efficient, most versatile, and certainly your most entertaining local basketball podcast. So appreciate you listening. Joel, let's start with the Jays. They got a pretty easy one the other night. That was, I mean, all things considered, where this thing was 2 weeks ago, I think this is about what Creighton needed to sort of right the season. And obviously getting Ryan Kalkbrenner back was a big part of it. What's your primary takeaway from the win over Seton Hall and just on a larger scale, this 3-game winning streak?
Sure. And first, Dirk, let me just say, Dirk has this new take on the quarter zip that I haven't seen. I like what he got going on. He got the scarf going on.
Okay, so I was going to lead with this, and I thought it was a little goofy. Joel, the scarf is by far the most underrated accessory in the wintertime. It's it's ridiculous. Like, I can not wear a scarf and wear 17 other layers, and I'm still cold. But if I put a scarf on, even if I'm wearing, just a quarter zip, I'm suddenly bundled up. Like, I'm to the point where if I could figure out a way to attach this thing to my shirt without it falling off and getting lost or the dog running off with it.
It looks like it right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can kind of flip it around your neck. My wife laughs at me like that. She does this, like, fold thing where then she loops it through the fold like she's tying her shoes or something like that.
I like that.
But the point is, Joel, my gosh, there's nothing that is so light that adds so much warmth in the wintertime as a good scarf.
Yeah, see, I'm not on the scarf wave yet. If somebody gifted me a Burberry scarf or something, like a scarf that I can make, because I like to be relatively fashionable, if I could make a scarf work, I would. But you pulling it off right now.
But Joel, that's the thing. Like, the scarf, I think it adds a ton of fashion.
But see, the scarf you got on right now, Dirk's wearing this black scarf with, like,
it's about 20 years old.
Checker. It looks like a what would you call that?
Plaid.
What's the shirt called? Flannel. A flannel. It looks like a flannel.
Yeah.
But what I got on right now, I got on this magenta hoodie with rhinestones on it.
It could use a scarf.
I don't think it would work with it.
Oh, everything. A scarf works with everything. You just got to get the right color. You'll be shocked. Just shocked how much warmth it adds.
Sure. Well, speaking of things,
if this doesn't land me an NIL deal with a local scarf shop,
with who?
Hey,
what scarf brands are there?
There's got to be a scarf shop in Omaha that is just dying for a sponsorship on the Half Court Press podcast.
I don't think there can't be a good chance of that, because out of all the things I promoted on this podcast, I haven't sniffed the deal. So
well, we're just withholding that. All the mail comes and we grab it before it gets to you.
Yeah,
so.
It figures. Anyway, it's speaking of things that work well together. The Seton Hall game, I thought. And Ryan Kalkbrenner said it best. There's a lot of connectivity within their defense, and I think it's something he's looked for. And frankly, I think a lot of national media turned their heads away from this Creighton team during that 6-game losing streak, and probably rightfully so for most of it.
Most good teams don't lose 6 games in a row.
Sure, but also you have to consider Ryan Kalkbrenner is their best player. And I don't think it's particularly close. It's not as close as we thought it might have been leading into the season. Like, we might have thought all 5 dudes were, like, within the same tier, close to it. It's not close anymore, I don't think. I think Arthur Kaluma still probably got the highest ceiling of them, maybe. And even he's kind of bought into this role where he's doing the simpler things and not trying to be Paul George. And so Ryan Kalkbrenner is their best player by far. And so when you look back at those 3 games they lost, still winnable games, still bad losses. But I think there was something to be said about how much impact he has. And I think you've seen it in these past 3 games. Obviously, we had to take those first 2 wins back with a grain of salt in DePaul and Butler because those teams look really bad, right? But Seton Hall is a middle-of-the-pack Big East team. They're not punks. They got a good win over Rutgers, who knocked off Purdue. And sure, they play nasty basketball at times, but they're a okay team that can win games. Probably a decent team on their best day. Got bounced by Kansas, but Kansas looks like the best team in the country according to some now. So Seton Hall is a team that could beat good teams, and Creighton had their way with them. I mean, the defensive half they had in that first half, and the defensive half Kalkbrenner alone had in that first half was unreal. I mean, he says that he's still working his way back toward his peak conditioning point, and he had 5 blocks in that first half. Like, he looked like peak Kalkbrenner, and I think with him back, they're trending in the right direction. And I thought that half alone spoke volumes, but then they kept Seton Hall away for good for the rest of that game.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, when you have an anchor like that as a guard, even as a 3 or 4 man, it just gives you so much security defensively, to know that you've got somebody behind you that is going to cover up your mistakes. You can get out more. You can be more aggressive. Creighton just plays with more confidence, and offensively it's the same way. It's like, okay, we know that if that guy gets the ball within 6 feet of the basket, it's 2 points. And so they play with more certainty. And so, again, not a huge shock because you kind of got a sense how good he was. But if you ever needed a reminder, Seton Hall was your reminder.
And not to downplay that 6-game losing streak, right? Losing six games. Like, there's no way around that. But I do think, they dearly miss Kalkbrenner, as I've said. And the last 3 games there, where they're in Vegas and whatever, and Marquette, it did reveal some intangible things like toughness and hard, I guess, stuff that they just had to make up for themselves and stuff I think they've made up since then. But Kalkbrenner, I think, like you said, brings that all together. And even, I'm watching some of the other players as they play alongside him. And, Trey Alexander had a sneakily really good game last game. I don't know how sneaky it was, but to me, it felt like a sneaky good game because he's obviously not spotting up and hitting 7 threes like he did against DePaul. But you're watching him make live ball reads off the bounce. And they're, hedging and icing him, and they're really challenging him as a facilitator, right? How patient can you be making your reads? And he took his time, man. I think there's a level of comfortability you have when you know Kalkbrenner's on the floor with you. And he took his time, and he wasn't just finding Kalkbrenner. I mean, he was finding everybody. It was a few times. I'm watching Shaheen because he's an animated dude. I'm watching him on the sideline, and there was a few passes that Trey made, whether it was a skip pass or just a perfect read, where Shaheen's just throwing his arms up what the F? What are you guys doing? But I think it was just a testament to how impressive Alexander looked alongside Kalkbrenner. I think stuff like that, and Kaluma flying in for boards, and these guys doing stuff that they probably didn't do during that last 3 games of the 6-game losing streak is because they feel more comfortable and have this level of, okay, I can do this while he's out there.
Yeah, and there needs to be a little bit more role definition than there was in the first 10 games of the year. I think you look at good teams. Take the Boston Celtics last year, right? They kind of figured out who they were when guys realized the pecking order, And I'm not saying Creighton needs a definite pecking order, but there just needs to be a little bit more acknowledgement of strengths and weaknesses, I think.
Sure.
And I think, Joel, if Trey can be if he can be their second best player, I like that order. I like that hierarchy. Because I think he's got so much versatility, and then Shireman and Kaluma and Nemhard obviously bring a lot to the game and can go off for 20 at any time, but there needs to be a little bit of okay, this is where I fit in. And I felt like that was missing Certainly during the 6-game losing streak, but maybe even before that.
I'd agree. But I will say I don't know how possible it is considering the personalities on this team, and I don't want to say egos. I mean,
and the individual aspirations, right?
Yeah, like athletes do want to be NBA players, and so I think that was Kaluma. I think you saw that most in Kaluma, and I think he's flipped the switch. But even still, on the other side of that, I don't know. Like, these dudes are all inconsistent, so you don't know what they're gonna give you each night. So even if you do define their roles, I don't know how well. Like, if you depend on Trey to be your second best player and he's getting bumped around one night, I mean, I don't know what that looks like moving forward, because I think they've all kind of flipped the switch in their mentalities and whatnot. But if he's getting bumped around and having a game like during that losing streak, he had a very bad shooting slump.
I thought he was underrated how bad he was.
Yeah, and so if he's doing that as your second best player, it leads to confusion. So I don't know right now if they could try to clamp down on some role definition, but it's a good idea. It's just they have to be a more consistent bunch for you to really be confident in that. And I think they went into the year thinking, like, because you don't know what each guy's going to give you and so-and-so could pop off one night, they saw it as a strength for them. And now, after, having this sample size, I think it would be better to know who's going to give you what each night.
Yeah. Well, they're gonna get a very interesting test Saturday morning because this thing has really flipped in the last 10 days, where Creighton went from an absolute mess to suddenly feeling a jolt of confidence, and UConn went from being arguably the number one team in the country to coming off 2 losses. Now they're going home. I'm sure they're going to play with a lot of desperation. Creighton's going to have to be ready for a bit of an ambush on Saturday morning.
Sure, and in fairness, like, I rock with UConn. I like their team. I'm not picking them for that game, but I'm saying the number one stuff. I saw the argument, but I've been rocking with Houston this whole time, and like Arizona, and they each lost a game before UConn did. But I think those teams and programs have had just added elements where you can see they're a championship team, and UConn has had flashes like that. But I think they've kind of had similar in these last 2 losses. They've kind of been similarly exposed. Like, I thought down the stretch in Providence, their star players just couldn't knock down a shot. Like, as good of a player as Andre Jackson is, and Sonogo is, they're just looking for shot making, kind of like Creighton has oftentimes down the stretch. And so obviously they're in the 2-game skid. I wouldn't put a win Saturday past them, though. I mean, they're still UConn, right? And usually teams that are that good don't let losing streak slip past.
Well, especially coming home, right? Like, you lose 2 on the road and you come home and it's like, okay, this is our chance to get right. In the same way that Creighton came home and had 3 home games in a row with that same mindset. So I think Creighton needs to weather the first 10 minutes on Saturday. Sure. I think UConn is going to play with a lot of intensity, a lot of desperation. You're going to be there. You're flying up there, and I imagine it will be one hell of an environment.
Yeah, I think so too. And the thing with Creighton, man, like, I think their confidence is at an all-time high, and it's because, like, obviously their 3-game homestand was like, man, like Butler, DePaul, whatever. Seton Hall, cool, but you take a big leap with UConn and Xavier. Now, I think beating them the way they did, like, they had Seton Hall down by their biggest deficit all season, and I think they played. I mean, Kansas beat them by 31. They were down 32. Maybe it wasn't their biggest deficit that season, but they almost beat them by their biggest deficit. So, I mean, they handily whooped them. Like, after the first 5 or 10 minutes, like, it wasn't a game. And so I think that's giving them a level of confidence that being able to catch UConn in this 2-game skid, it's just perfect timing. Now, I think Creighton, like, you're right, they're going to have to weather the first 10 minutes. And something you haven't seen this year is them having 2 different halves. Like, if they don't shoot well in one half, it's going to carry over to the other half. I think with the type of shot making they have and, that level of comfortability I mentioned with Kalkbrenner on the floor, I think if the shots aren't falling in the first half, you can't let it affect your defense, which I think would be pretty hard with Kalkbrenner on the floor now and the way he's anchored them. And then you have to keep shooting. I mean, I'm not saying do what you did against Nebraska, but shoot the shots that you feel comfortable with, not that the defense is giving you. So.
Yeah, good point. Okay, you mentioned the Huskers. It's a good transition to them. They since we last spoke, they beat Iowa in a pretty dominant performance. Arguably the best performance of the Fred Hoiberg era, actually. Iowa could not make a shot. Nebraska was flying around making plays. Of course, the hard part is making that carry over to the road at Michigan State. Joel, back when you were about, 14 years old or something like that, Nebraska went up to Michigan State in the middle of February and won a huge road game up there that kick-started an NCAA tournament run for them. Did not get the same result the other night in East Lansing. That was they hung for a little bit, and then Michigan State kind of ran away late in the first half. The Huskers, as we always know, they just struggle to score. Michigan State shot 48%, which is good, not great. Michigan State, didn't make a ton of jump shots. Tyson Walker had a nice game, but, that was pretty typical Michigan State. Nebraska just can't score sometimes. And aside from Derek Walker, they really struggled. They're going to run into this on the road. There's just not a lot of offensive depth on that team, Joel.
Yeah, and I don't know. This team, man, like you don't know what you're going to get. And banking on, being gritty and having nasty games, it can win you some big games like Iowa, which I challenge Fred to maybe grab, to maybe buy himself some time, which I think, I don't know if you agree with me, but I think he has bought himself some time. Even if, I don't know how the rest of the season pan out, but I got to imagine if it trends this way, he's bought himself.
If you beat Creighton and Iowa in the same year, it certainly buys you some leeway with Husker fans.
No doubt. And but looking at the Michigan State game itself, I think that was Michigan State. Well, it might have been their second conference game because I know they played and lost to Northwestern. Not great because that's probably the worst team in the league.
No, Minnesota's the worst team in the league.
Yeah, sure. Minnesota is the worst for sure. I forgot about Minnesota because they're that bad. But yeah, I mean, that was Michigan State's first, I guess, the start of their real league slate. After they played a bunch of random teams. Well, they did play Penn State. Okay, so they're really sporadic. But this Michigan State team is not super impressive.
Nope.
And Iowa obviously has some things going on. But that was a big win regardless. And so I don't know where to stand with this team and their forward momentum because you send Creighton to mental hell with that win, and then you beat a team like Iowa, and then you got moral victory type things with the IU game, even though they lost kind of handily, but they didn't have Griesel, and they've had other, I think, moral victories. But then to lose a game like this, Purdue, and then to lose a game like this,
But Joel, that's what happens when you can't put the ball in the basket.
Yeah.
You go on the road in conference, if you can't score, you're going to get blown out. Because the other team plays with more confidence. Michigan State certainly plays with more confidence. So, you're going to have nights where Nebraska's going to have more than most, but they're going to have nights where they don't score. And Tuesday night was one of those nights. They go into a really important game Saturday, though, because as you're at UConn, watching Creighton, Nebraska's going to Minnesota. And for the reason that we just talked about, Minnesota being the worst team in the league, that's a road game you got to win, right? Because you're not going to get many opportunities. And Nebraska's going up to the barn where, some goofy things happen sometimes. That's a game they got to win. They got to steal one because you're not going to get many chances like that in conference.
Yeah, and as much as we say the Creighton and Iowa wins are wins that maybe buy Fred time, I think a loss, even on the road to Minnesota, is a game that maybe loses him time. It is a setback probably beyond measure because Minnesota is that bad, and Nebraska has,
although Minnesota almost beat Wisconsin the other night. You watched that.
Well, that's just the Big Ten. But, I mean, Nebraska has fully catapulted itself to say, okay, we're at least a few tiers above a team like Minnesota. I mean, everybody in the league has. So it was definitely depending on how close the game is, I mean, I think a loss regardless is a setback. But if it's like a one possession game, I don't know. I mean, after the Michigan State game, I couldn't tell you what's going to happen. But I don't think they lose. I mean, it would, like I said, it would be a setback.
Yeah.
I think what they did.
You know, I mentioned this on the other podcast. The thing that concerns me, Joel, is just when you're so reliant on your defense, which Nebraska is.
Yeah.
Defense is something that really requires energy, right? And when you're playing a 20-game conference season and you got to grind every night and you're playing so many 1 and 2 and 3 possession games, I just worry about their fatigue level. You know, like Creighton's going to have nights where they make enough jump shots to blow a team out and to play 20 or 30 minutes like they did against Seton Hall, you know. Nebraska's not going to have a lot of those nights. I mean, they're going to have to grind to win because they don't score that much. And so I just worry about their stamina level. It's they're going to have to be on point, concentrate, focus, all those things. And I think when you do that every 3 or 4 days against NCAA tournament teams, which they're going to see 9 or 10 of those probably in the league, it just grinds on you after a while, you know?
Sure. And for what it's worth, I think I thought the Michigan State game, I didn't think they would get blown out like that because Michigan State's had their flashes of issues or whatever. But I think the next couple of games, don't kill me if you're an Illinois fan listening to this, the next couple of games.
We're huge in the Champaign market.
The next couple of games should be relatively relaxed on that front.
Whoa, well, relax! Don't you have you not been around Nebraska basketball enough to know that there's no such thing as a relaxing game? Come on.
Well, the Minnesota game I think is a win, and then Illinois. I mean, we talk about teams with issues.
You just chalked up a road win in the Big Ten for Nebraska.
Yeah, I did.
Okay,
and I'm obviously not. I haven't been Nebraska's biggest. I haven't bet them their money line at every game. I'm not a gambler, by the way, but I think that is for the campaign that we're pushing, that I'm pushing of, hey, get Fred more time. I think in this alternate reality where he gets more time, this is a win. And Illinois, I think, is if not a competitive game, it's a win because Illinois is one of those teams, like we mentioned, that has their fair share of issues. I can't remember the last college basketball season I watched where I saw this many top 25 teams.
Joel, it is crazy. And obviously there's a lack of like greatness at the top, but there's just a ton of volatility. Like and I don't even mean teams like Creighton and North Carolina, which we've talked about in the past, but like it's everybody, you know. There's nobody that the consistency level is weirdly off.
Yeah, like the teams we're talking about are consistent are like New Mexico and like College of Charleston. Like you look at a team like Auburn. I thought Auburn has been fraudulent for most of the year, and I think they just lost the other night. But their spot in the top 25 is real suspect. And I dare I say it, like Mizzou looks like one of the more real teams in the top 25. I mean, this is an alternate reality I didn't expect to walk.
Well, and let's look at UConn, Kansas, like the teams at the top.
There's no clear number one.
Is there anybody at the top that you couldn't see losing in the second round of the NCAA tournament?
Sure, yeah. No, it makes sense. And I look across the board, and I think it's how uncertain all the powerhouses have been. Like, Illinois has had their issues. Kentucky is a walking issue.
Gonzaga
has had their issues. So it's just everything's so unpredictable, and maybe that benefits Nebraska in the league this year. I don't know. Obviously, they have to work harder than most to get their wins. But
yeah.
I think considering the next two games, if it goes the way I've foretold it, then I think Fred. Well, we have to keep talking about Fred getting more time. Then that's just the thing.
Yeah, it's a long road ahead. I think you just got to see how this team endures the rigor of the Big Ten.
Yeah, and we were kind of talking about this before the pod started, but even if as much as I'm only pushing Fred more time because he has two really big wins. It's hard to see people not saying, okay, you deserve more time. Like, it feels inevitable if you keep trending that way, right? But we talked about this before we started recording. Like, even if Fred does get more time, it's really hard to put him in a position to where you keep saying that. Like, he would have to keep getting monumental wins with each year because the talent and, having to try to recruit talent that fits his style. It's just unbelievably rough.
I think the hard part is just you're not even the roster you have right now is not something you can build on, in terms of like continuity. Like
Sure,
you're sort of starting from scratch again, right? Next year.
Yeah.
That's not to say that a couple of those guys won't stay, but your best players are largely going to be gone again. So, but as Tom Chatelain said in our other podcast, at least you maybe found a template that is promising. At least you sort of identified the program as sort of a gritty defensive program, as opposed to what they were the first few years when they were trying to, it was Alonzo Verge and Bryce McGowan's trying to score 40 points every night.
Sure.
So I think maybe they've developed some grit here, even if they don't keep all these guys next year. At least they maybe figure out a path. They don't have to win the Big Ten. You don't have to be a top 25 program. Finish 7th or 8th in the Big Ten. You're going to make the NCAA tournament.
Sure. And on that front, like, considering like if Fred did build a new identity for the program, is there a higher ceiling for that? Because this is not who he is. Like, is there a higher ceiling for that? Has he maximized that already? Is there a batch of players, talent-wise? Like, will he go out and recruit those type of guys now?
I don't know. It's a really good question for the off season and how they sort of repurpose themselves. It's very encouraging what they got from Vandemel and Gary and Griesel coming in off the transfer market, but they're probably going to have to find 2 or 3 more of those guys in the next cycle. I want to finish with this, Joel. What in the hell is going on in the NBA? Because we're not going to talk NBA every week, but we were texting back and forth at 11:45 last night, talking about all the theatrics in the league.
That's when I had lunch, by the way.
That's when you had lunch. Joel's on a little different schedule than most of us responsible adults who wear scarves.
Yeah, I wouldn't call myself a responsible
Joel,
adult.
what is Donovan Mitchell 70? Giannis 71. Luka getting 60. I mean, guys are going nuts. 40, 50 every night.
Didn't we have this conversation last pod? Because didn't Luka do this before we recorded the last pod?
I don't know. It all runs together, Joel.
Yeah.
But like, are guys just allowed to travel more? Like, what's going on here?
Don't be the old guy saying that. I've had this conversation internally over the last few days. I forgot what game that was. It might have actually been the Providence and UConn game. I'm such an active person on Twitter, so I'm always digging in the comments. And
Stay away from the comments, Joel.
Well, it's inevitable. And so, if I'm right, I think it was this game. I must have saw the first thing, like, obviously, because UConn fans, they don't expect to lose this year, right? So when they do, it's like, everything go to hell. And so I must have seen the first comment was like, the refs were shit. Like, and I see this every time. Every time someone's team loses, the refs are shit. And I saw this from Mizzou fans too. I didn't watch the full Mizzou game, but they were like, the refs were shit. And so I'm like,
well, I think that's an age-old criticism,
but that's
right?
so annoying. And me personally, in my coverage, I almost completely take out officiating.
No, yeah, you don't want to write about officiating.
Because through the course of most games, it swings both ways, I think. And so for people to blame officiating, it's so annoying. I'm going on this rant because you mentioned traveling. Traveling is part of it, bro. Like, all the fouls and all the travel, carry, bro. Like, kill all this shit. Like, I had somebody argue with me last game because I forgot. I think it was Odekale that had a dunk in the first half. And then he, like, swung on the rim. But, like, because he did, like, a chin-up, he had to, like, swing himself back down. And he was up there long enough to where he got a tech.
Yeah, I don't like that.
I hate that call. Like,
the only refs who call technicals for hanging on the rim are refs who could never dunk.
And, bro, like, that's a call that, like, has to be eradicated. And so I had this dude in my comments arguing with me, like, it's a tech for sure. Like, what do you say? Because I said a soft tech. And he's like, from my view, he did a chin-up, so why wouldn't it be a call? And it's like, bro, I don't care if he did a backflip on the rim. Like, that shit should not be called. Like, that's such a soft call.
Hey, if we want to increase television ratings, we'll let guys do whatever they want on the rim after a dunk.
Sure. And so back to your point, we've seen, I think this year, the refs have made it a thing to actually increase the the travel calls and the carry calls. I've seen carry call more times this
more
year
carries
than I can remember, which is annoying because you basically saying you wish Allen Iverson never existed. I mean, he didn't
carried the ball. He carried the ball, Joel.
He didn't have a career for nothing, right?
Isaiah Thomas of the Celtics carried the ball.
They paved the way for carrying to be. I mean, as long as your ball is not, as long as your hand is not.
You can't guard those guys the way they dribble the ball. Ask Fred Hoiberg. When Fred Hoiberg was the Bulls head coach and Isaiah Thomas was doing that, Fred actually raised the fuss on a post-game press conference, which Fred never does, because you can't guard guys like that when they carry the ball. You have to call it.
I don't think you guard guards either way. I mean, this as much as some guys pride themselves on defense, this is not a defensive league.
Okay, we joked about it. Okay, so the real reason why are guys scoring like never before? Is it because nobody plays defense? Is it because the officiating? Is it because scorers are just more skilled than ever? What's going on? Because this is actually becoming a thing. It's NBA, but it will inevitably trickle down to college
I've never
basketball.
Seen it like this. We're not even at the All-Star break, and every game, because I tell myself I never really have time to watch the NBA as it's happening in real time. I always have to go back and watch, and so I keep telling myself I'm gonna go back and watch Luka's game, and then Donovan will put up 71, and it's okay, I'm gonna tell myself I'm gonna go back and watch Donovan's game, and then Giannis puts up 55, and it's well, shit, man, y'all are losing me.
I don't have enough time in the day for this.
I can't keep up with this shit.
This is why you stay up till 5 o'clock in the morning.
It really is, and so I think guys are just too talented. As much as people your age want to boast about the bad boy Pistons and whoever else, I mean, dog, we've never seen this batch of talented scorers ever. You could drop a mid-tier player. You could drop, dare I say, Jordan Poole, Desmond Bain in the 90s, and they'd be a Hall of Famer, dog. These dudes are
Joel, you just triggered about
cry.
You didn't trigger me
my Twitter.
Because you know what? I am actually new school when it comes to this. I believe wholeheartedly in what you just said, that the shot making is at a level that guys in the 90s and 2000s can't touch. And I'm one of these guys who thinks that. Well, I won't go there on Scottie Pippen being terribly overrated and all this stuff. But the point is the level, the skill level, because guys are playing so much, so young, all the off-season stuff they do, all the shot making drills that they do and practice that they do that started with Steph Curry, it's you almost can't guard guys now. And Wembanyama is going to be the next evolution. 7'4" shooting runner threes from 25 feet. This is only going to keep going, right? The evolution of basketball, but it is very cool. You turn on a random NBA game, and you see things that you never thought you'd see. And I think it's a testament to the skill level and how much work guys are putting into it.
Yeah, and it's not just the NBA, right? You're seeing, what in what world do you know? I don't think it was like this before I was born, where the college player of the year won't go on to be at least a decent NBA player. And I'm not saying Oscar Tshiebwe can't be, right? But these are guys, we're talking about guys, the players of the year candidates are going to be back half of the draft, the last 10 picks. And it's just...
Luka Garza's listening to you right now.
Oh, brother, I never liked him, by the way. Did you ever see his combine? They don't make them run the 40. Whatever they make them do, the sprint they do at the combine. Probably the most cringe clip I've ever seen was watching him run at the combine. But
hey, he's in the league though.
Just barely.
He's making money.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Salute to him. He can get in his bag, being slow. But like you said, the talent, they're just bred differently. I'm even watching I was watching that Arkansas game yesterday, and I'm watching a guy like Jordan Walsh, who isn't a shot maker, but guys, even the intangibles are being bred differently. Defensive intensity and being a menace. You're seeing a different this whole wave of guys I'm not even gonna start naming names because people are gonna say, why are you even putting them in the same tier? But let's just throw the name Draymond out and all the guys that maybe follow his steps or have tried to. That's an entire mold of a player that I think you drop them in the 90s and they do really well. As much as we like to clown Draymond, I think he kills it in the 90s, right? And so Jordan Walsh is another guy who he might not ever have to be a shot maker, but I'm watching him kill Missouri on the boards and defend the best player. I mean, he locked up Kaluma like I've never seen before. This is a guy I'm really encouraged about. So from shot makers to glue guys to all the dudes and intangibles, players are just bred differently these days, man. It's crazy.
It is. We'll end it there. I was going to resist the urge to say, Donovan Mitchell can score 71 points, but Nebraska basketball can't. I won't say that because they're going to beat Minnesota on Saturday, Joel.
Yeah, so
and when they do, we're going to bring back the NIT talk. So he's Joel Lorenzi. I'm Dirk Chatelain. Thanks for listening to the Half Court Press podcast. We'll see you next week.